Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon session of PyCon 2019. Our first speaker for this session is Jessica Garson, and she is going to be making some music for us, so please make her feel welcome.
How's it going? Today, I'm Jess, and today I'm going to be talking to you about making music with Python, SuperCollider, and FoxDot. But before we get started, I'm going to give you my contact information. I can't wait to hear what you create. So if you are inspired to make some music, please send it to me. I really want to hear it. So my email is jessica.garson@gmail.com. And my Twitter handle, I work at Twitter actually as well, is @JessicaGarson. And if you want to listen to my music, you can find my Bandcamp at massacrearson.bandcamp.com. So also, if you want to follow along, there's some slides, and they are available at pycon-makingmusic-glitch.me. Again, that's pycon-makingmusic.glitch.me. And you can find my slides there. And if you want some code and next steps, there is a repository on my GitHub that has where all the code is found. You can also hear my music in a couple of different places. If you want a noise tape mailed to you, hit me up via Twitter. And if you want to see me play music, there's some places where you can find that. And there's also some sample scripts. And I'll be posting any code later today, too. And so the way that this is going to go is it's going to be a bit of a live coded adventure. I'm going to write a song during this talk, so it should be fun. But also, there's a lot of really great Python programmers in this room, and this is a live code adventure, so if you see something, say something. I'm sure I'm going to have a couple of syntax errors. Please, help your friend out, and let me know if anything is looking weird. And you might be wondering, Jess, I heard you say Massacre Arson. Who's that? What is that? So Massacre Arson is a moniker that started for me when I was in 3rd grade. We were learning about arson, which is really strange for a group of 3rd graders. I'm not really sure why. There was like a firefighter that came to the classroom, and pretty quickly, my last name is Garson, everybody was like, Arson, Garson. And that was pretty cool. But there was this one girl, genius, named Kate, who sat next to me, and she was like, Massacre Arson, because I was always a messy child, and I still am. And I was like, man, I'm going to use that. I sang in a bunch of punk bands. I was like, if I ever have a solo project, I'm going to use Massacre Arson. I didn't think that my solo project was going to be me writing code and sampling myself screaming, but here we are. We're here to talk about that. And with that being said, I did want to kind of give a little bit of a warning. I'm going to be sampling myself screaming, I believe, at one point during this. There's going to be scream samples that will be played, and there'll be noise music. That's not for everybody, and that's OK. If this talk isn't for you, I didn't want to give you a little bit of a warning before. Nobody's leaving, so that's great. Cool. This is awesome. And so this has become basically one of my favorite things to do. As a programmer, it's really fun to find kind of a side project that you're really passionate about. And for me, there's something incredibly magical about your computer making sounds because your code told it to. It's one of the best feelings when you finally get that working. And you're like, yes, this is awesome. And so I perform regularly with a collective in New York City called Code NYC. And one time, this very famous live-coded artist came to visit us in New York, and he crashed his computer, and it was almost like the musical equivalent of breaking a guitar, of smashing a guitar on stage, and I was like, yeah, someday I want to do that. Hopefully it's not today, but there is something really magical about making art with your code, and so I hope that you are able to enjoy that. So what is FoxDot? FoxDot is a wrapper for another language called SuperCollider, and it allows us to interact with our computer as if we were using a synthesizer. How many people have used a synthesizer before? Wow, that's like most of you. And you know how you can have knobs and kind of move things, and you can kind of set the levels that you want? I could do that with my code, and it's super awesome. And the other really great thing about FoxDot is that you can make a lot of sound with a little bit of code. And when you're performing in front of people, things can get really nerve-wracking. So little code is good sometimes. And you might be wondering, where can you get this? So you can get it at foxdot.org/installation. And as I mentioned, FoxDot is built on top of another language called SuperCollider, and you actually have to download that first, and you have to manually start it. So we can go in, and because I had to sound check in the room, some folks got to hear it earlier, it's already pre-started for me, but I had to type in foxdot.start. And there's a couple different ways to launch FoxDot, but the first way that we're going to talk about is through the command line. So it's python-m foxdot. And now it launches, cool. And now it launches this interactive development environment. So from here, let's actually, we could do P1, and we could do pluck. Thank you. Yeah, I was just getting ready to do that, but I like using my editor, and we're going to get to that in a second. But so from here, cool, we're making some sound. We can kind of see it coming through. From here, we're actually going to stop it, and I'm actually going to unlaunch it, because it does behave a little bit quirky sometimes. No, we're not going to do that. But I do want to show you a couple of different things. So you saw where I was writing the code, and you saw where the terminal was running. There's also a tutorial, which is like super awesome. And what you can do is you could follow along as you go. So we started with this pluck, and we did that. But let's try to run these lines. And then from here, you could see it kind of changing as you go. And so this, to me, is the coolest part, that you could just learn and kind of change it. And that's how I got started. I just followed the examples and then changed it until it sounded nothing like the examples, and then was like, what would happen if I replaced it with a file of myself screaming? And, you know, fun things happen. And as you noticed, I was fumbling a little bit. I like my editor a lot, so I tend to use the FoxDot package for Atom, and I tend to run code in my own development environment, which is Atom these days. So because of that, I like to do that. And you might be wondering, okay, Jess, you've been talking for a few minutes now. You promised us that we were going to make a song together. So let's do that. You excited? Okay, cool. So I typically like to start with the synth default. So let's print synth defs. And we have a list of synths. There's dirt, there's crunch, there's noise, my favorite, pluck, there's a bunch of different ones. So let's actually start with, let's do swell. And now let's add in noise. Bass. Cool, so we're starting to put in some built-in synths in here. And now from here, we can actually pass an array in. And these are notes that we're passing in. So we can do so we can hear our code start to change, which is pretty exciting. So that's the first little bit. And what we're doing is we're assigning player object 1 into noise, and then we're passing an array through. And you might have noticed, or you might not have noticed, but the tempo was set to BPM 120, which is 120 beats per minute. We can actually change that BPM and make things go faster or slower. So let's do that. So we can use clock to do that. So we can do clock.bpm, and clock controls all of the timing for all of this, which is super fun. So let's change it to 130. And if we go to maybe 90, we could hear it go slower. Let's go to 180. So we're starting to kind of make a song. It's pretty fun. We can also do the built-in samples. So now if we want to take a look at the samples, let's do the same thing that we did earlier. So we could do print samples. And we can run this line. And from here, we have a bunch of samples. Now, it's kind of lying to me because I've replaced a lot of the samples with myself screaming. So that isn't what we have. So let's play some of that. Let's do hi PyCon. Cool. So now we are starting to make some sounds. That's my favorite thing to do, which is to write messages to y'all with my code. So yeah, that's exciting. So now a couple of different things about samples. So there are two different ways to add in samples. As you might have noticed, one of the things that I did was I played that sample of myself screaming. You might be wondering, Jess, how did you put that in there? So if we go to Help and Settings, and we go to Open Samples folder, we get a Samples folder that has a bunch of different things put in. And then if we go to C, because you heard the C was myself screaming, we have upper and lower, and these were things I recorded. There's some funny ones like ended, and Vagrant is one. Sorry if anybody works on Vagrant, but there is a file, vagrant.wave, which is just myself screaming, so, things happen. It's really great. Yeah, so that's one way. There's another way. So NASA, how many people like NASA's APIs and products? They're really awesome. Okay, cool. Shout out to their stuff. They have a samples library, which is so cool, right? And I love using it for stuff. So we can take this path, which is the wave file. I never can remember my file path in front of people. I perform regularly, and I always need to cut and paste it. So from here, we could say loop, which lets us loop this. And from here, we also have to set the duration. For some strange reason, it clips it off, so you have to set the duration to 10 for a full sample to play. I learned this the hard way, but yeah, cool. We'll play it in a second.
Discovery Roger, go for deploy. 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 Discovery Roger.
Cool. So now we've added in one of our own samples. And now this is going to be the fun part. A lot of times when I perform, I record myself sampling myself on stage. And this works some of the time. So hopefully the live demo gods are on my side today on this front. Cool. All right. Cool. So now this is where I'm gonna sample myself screaming. Cool. So what I do is I have this mic that's connected to my laptop. Super fun, very low tech, but I love it. So now from here, we can record. Ah! Ah! Cool. And actually, let's try this again, because it didn't seem to work. It doesn't always work. This is the most embarrassing part, because it never works the way I want it to. Ah! Ah! Doesn't look like it's picking up. Oh, well. That's typically how I do it, and then I cut and paste my file path from there. But now you know, works about 70% of the time. If you have any ideas or other suggestions about how to do it, let me know. One of the greatest things about writing code in this way is opening yourself up to making errors in front of people. And like sometimes it sounds weird, sometimes it doesn't work, and that's OK, and that's part of the process. So I love making music in this way because of that. So now that we've talked about the couple different ways to add samples, and we've tried to record one, didn't really work so well, but oh well. From here, now we can actually add some effects into our sound. And so effects let us kind of customize our sound and add different things like distortion, one of my favorites. But we're going to add a couple of different ones in, and I'm going to make some music for you, if that's all right.
Discovery Roger, go for deploy. 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 Discovery Roger.
So yeah, I added some fun effects to make myself sound cool. What I added was amp, which is short for amplitude, and that's the loudness of the sound. We also have compress, which is the process of lessening the dynamic range between the loudest and quietest parts of the audio signal, so it basically squishes everything together. Attack, which is basically the initial buildup of sound. There's pan, which is the distribution between the sound signals. So how many people have listened to headphones and they've heard music coming in one ear and then later on it comes into the other ear? How many people have ever heard that? There's a couple of popular songs that have that. That's done with pan, which is really cool. And then there's decay, which is the progressive reduction in the amplitude of sound over time. And I love to play with that. And then rate is what made me kind of sound creepy, like a ghost. It's like one of my favorite party tricks. I use it to adjust the rate of playback, and it makes my vocals sound deeper and weirder and creepier. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Cool. So you might have seen me stopping things a little bit along the way, but there's a couple of different ways to do that. And as you notice, one of my favorite things, so to me, my music is all about creating something beautiful and destroying it all, so I like to play with texture a lot and reveal sometimes that the beautiful thing that you heard at the beginning of my set is still happening, but I've just kind of replaced it with scream samples that kind of sound like ambulances and things like that. And so, I don't know, I like to play with that, and using dot stop lets me. So I'm gonna show you what that's like for a second. Cool, so now clock.clear, that stops the clock from running. I've also been using the keyboard shortcut for clock.clear the whole time during this, but dot stop and clock.clear are the two ways. And dot stop just stops a line. And so you might be wondering, how is this all working? This is working using concurrency. And you should stay in this room for the talk after mine, which will dive into the depths of concurrency. But what's happening here is that, for example, for player object 1, for swell, we are passing in using a bitwise operator on channel P1, and we're passing in swell with the array and the decay and all of that, and that's how that works. One thing I also want to show you really quickly is how to create functions and how functions can call each other, which is really cool. So what we can do is we can create a function. So I'm going to create a function called hello, and let's put in and then from here, let's maybe put in profit is a good one. And then we can make, and we can call hello. So let's actually run this block of code. And now we can make another function called PyCon. And let's put in, let's do ambi, which is a fun one. And then from here, we can pass in, all right, let's just call PyCon. And so from here, and let's actually change this to channel P3. Now, what we can do is we can actually call them to each other. So clock.future, and you could set the timing. So we could do 9, and then let's call hello. And then from here, one of the coolest things that you can actually call functions that haven't been run yet, which is super awesome. So from here, let's do clock.future. And let's do 10 and call PyCon, which is super awesome. And that's how you can call things to control the timing. And I like to do that to make verses and choruses with each other. Cool. Cool. So now I've made a couple of errors, but one of the best things about making errors in FoxDot is even if you make mistakes, it still keeps running. So that's something that's really cool. I wish life was like that. It just runs the last successful loop. So people don't really know. I once, during a show, actually was looking up Stack Overflow, and the entire audience was cheering. So that was really cool. And like there was still like one loop that was happening. So yeah, luckily it didn't come to that today. And you can also record inside of SuperCollider, and you can do s.record and s.stop recording when you're done. And you just run them line by line, which is pretty cool. So I've been talking for a while, and you're probably like, Jess, this is such a boring talk. And so maybe we can make some music together. So don't tweet yet, but in a few minutes, when I tell you to, you could tweet at Massacre Arson the words hi, hello, or yo. Keep in mind that we do have a code of conduct here, and there is a possibility that your tweet to me might show in my code. So keep that in mind. Try to be nice and respectful for all of us. And now I'm going to kind of talk through what I'm doing, and hopefully when I tell you to tweet at me, y'all will tweet at me and we'll make some music together. This is the scariest part of the talk, so hopefully this works well. So I've created the script. I work at Twitter, and I was like, oh, cool. We should use the Twitter API to make music together. So I had to handle the auth. So from here, I'm going to run this line of code. And I have a little bit of a syntax error, which happens sometimes. Oh, where? Oh, cool, great. I'm a little bit nervous running this in front of all y'all, so appreciate the live coding community, which everybody in this room is now a part of. And so from here, I pass everything through requests. I pass my account name, my username, my password, all of that. And then from here, I actually process the response. And so from here, I do some fun stuff with the encoding, and I run this line by line. super cool. And then I process the word. And then from here, I parse the word. And so I also have passed it in to map to just some fun things. I really like the beat of bye for whatever reason. I end all of my shows with it. And this is the ending, so one of the options is. And then I pass in hello, just make sure that things are working well. And now from here, I'm going to handle the off. And then from here, I should be getting a 200, which I have not gotten. Cool. Now y'all can start tweeting at me. Cool. And again, it's hi, hello, or yo. And it's Massacre Arson, not Jessica Garson. Oh, no. And then from here, cool, somebody typed yo to me. That worked. Great. And since we're running a little bit short on time, also, shout out to that working. Yay. If you want to see that code, you can find it on TwitterDev's GitHub at github.com/twitterdev-making music or make music together. And if you want to learn how to do this, there's some resources on my GitHub. And there's also some really nice people on the internet at talk.lark.org/channel FoxDot, including the person who created FoxDot. And I can't wait to hear what you create. Go on and make some awesome music.